2020 at 7:01 p.m. We'll begin with the roll.
Alderperson Cronin.
Present.
Alderperson Journey. Alderperson Journey.
Here.
Alderperson Kemp.
Here.
Alderperson Cole.
Here.
Alderperson Posey.
Here.
Alderperson Reekie.
Here.
Alderperson Ryan.
Here.
Alderperson Touche will arrive later.
Great. 7 people. That's quorum. We'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. Mr. Sayer, did anyone register for public comment?
No, no one did.
Okay. We'll move on to item 4, which is approval of minutes from the June 22nd, 2020 Common Council meeting. Questions, comments, motions?
Move approval.
Motion by Alder Kemp. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Posey, I think. Last chance for corrections on the minutes.
It was a second by Alder Cronin.
Oh, okay. Seconded by Alder Cronin. I wasn't sure. Any chance for corrections on the minutes from the last meeting or from this meeting? Seeing no hands. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the June 22nd, 2020 Common Council meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Mr. Sarah, I do see Evan in the attendees list, so I'm going to assume that's him and not a saboteur.
Yep, he's got his hand up.
All right. For mayor's business, I just have one thing real quick, and I unfortunately don't see anyone from the Verona Press in the audience, but if anyone from the Verona Press is listening on YouTube, I just want to say whenever people have feedback about city business, they should feel free to reach out to their alders or to myself or to Mr. Sayer, via email or phone or whatever, and I always like to hear feedback, and I imagine other alders do, and I guess what I'm saying is people shouldn't wait for like a quote unquote appropriate time. They should just, if they feel like they have something they're in favor of, something they're against, something they're neutral on but have a question, they should feel free to reach out to their elected officials, because I mean we're here to listen to people and represent people. But that's all I had. I will move on to item 6, which is announcements. Are there any announcements from the council? Not seeing any hands. All right. No announcements. With that, we'll move on to item 7, the administrator's report. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. A few updates tonight. First of all, we have a personnel meeting tomorrow at 7 a.m. That'll be by Zoom. On that topic, we'll be talking about the George Floyd resolution, also talking about our training and recruiting practices and goals as a city. So I would encourage anyone to attend to watch that meeting. There will be a park, rec, and forestry meeting this Wednesday, July 15th. And then also next Monday, there is an informational meeting that is being held by St. Ambrose Academy for their proposal for a school on the St. Christopher property. So I think most of the alders, if not all the alders, got that invite. They'll be held virtually on Teams. That is not a city-led meeting. That's a developer neighborhood meeting in our virtual sense. So these are the meetings they typically host in person, but because of COVID, it's being held virtually.
When was that? Sorry, when was that meeting again?
It's going to be next Monday
At 6:30.
at 6:30. Thank you.
Great.
And that's on Microsoft Teams. We do have some COVID updates. We had plans to reopen City Hall and the Public Works building. Due to the recent spike in COVID cases, both those buildings remain closed to the public for the foreseeable future. We'll continue to monitor the data and make changes as necessary. The library has modified their hours. The building is now closed from 10 to 12 each day. That allows staff to clean and restock the bookshelves. There was a lot of concerns about the interactions of the restocking staff and patrons coming in to pick up materials. And out of precautions, we decided to kind of have that 2-hour window kind of during the day. The 9 to 10 hour window every day will remain available for seniors and high-risk individuals. The senior center is currently offering foot care services to seniors on an appointment basis only. We are looking at potentially additional options in the future, but that is the only offering that is currently available. Any senior looking to do that would need to make an appointment at the senior center. Splash Pad in Fireman's Park is very popular just because of the heat that we've had this year. The beach is capped at 125 people. We do now have an online registration system that people now need to use to sign up to use the beach. We were hitting the capacity when it was hot on a regular enough basis that we put that in place to hopefully stagger out the attendance coming into the facility. We're going to continue to kind of monitor that situation, and we'll make adjustments as appropriate, but that is now in place, and information on that can be found on the Fireman's Park Facebook page and the city website. The city's park program, which is pretty popular throughout the community with people with kids, we did shut that down for 2 weeks. We had a participant that had a positive COVID test, so that park program is closed down for another week. It will restart hopefully next week. So there's been a slight change just because we did have that participant test positive. So out of, once again, being just cautious, we closed the whole program down for 2 weeks, and which probably wasn't a bad idea because it was hot anyways. When it gets that hot, we typically cancel because of the potential heat advisories for kids. So, but that program was closed for about 2 weeks there. With that, that's all I had, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
I got 2 questions about the parks, and then I'll turn it over to Alder Cronin. The parks group thing. I guess, is there anything being done in the future to prevent potential spread? I mean, like, I wouldn't want to deny anyone outdoor activities at this time, but I do kind of worry about having, facilitating the gathering of groups.
So we group the kids by, they're color coded each day. So if you go to Harriet Park, or if you go in the morning or afternoon, or wherever parks it's run at, the kids are kind of grouped into the same kids every single day. So we tried to kind of shrink the bubble, try to shrink that circle. They're playing non-contact games as well. So if you drive by on any given morning outside my office here, when they're going, I see the kids playing noodle tag. So they have the noodles instead of playing normal touch tag. They use the noodles to tag people. So they're trying to use as much kind of precaution with that. They have hand sanitizer available on a regular basis. If there's any inclement weather, we'll cancel proactively because if it rains, all the kids gather under the shelter. So typically, if there's a threat of rain or storms, we'll just cancel it just to be safe out of caution as well. We do have a lot of overlap with siblings at potentially different parks. We also have a lot of overlap that some of our counselors date one another. So to be cautious, that's why we shut the whole program down instead of just shutting down one park where this had occurred. But I know Casey Dudley has taken a lot of precautions this year of just trying to find games and activities where the kids aren't having that contact that we normally would see at the playground program. Without canceling it, it'd be impossible, but we've done the best we could. This is the first time it's happened so far, which, knock on wood, hopefully is the last.
Yeah. And I guess my follow-up is, has Dane County Public Health done any contact tracing? I'd be curious, because I know there's a lot of unknowns about the disease right now, but everyone seems to think that, or all indications point to outdoor being very low risk, and as long as everyone stays outdoor in the sun and doesn't get too close or engage in high-risk behaviors, that it's about as safe as things can be made right now.
I'm not aware of anybody being contact traced. I am aware of a couple situations of just where a counselor's siblings or direct family member had COVID, and once they were tested positive, obviously they stayed home.
That's good.
But I'm not aware of any contact tracing going back into the program.
Okay. Alder Cronin.
In terms of the St. Ambrose Academy proposal, is it my understanding that the city is actually doing a traffic analysis with this? And if that is the case, do we have any idea when that might be completed?
Sorry, from Button. So yes, they did complete a traffic analysis. They are still, and it's still being reviewed. I think has not been finalized, but we've kind of reached the point where we felt it was prudent to take the information and the request to the Plan Commission kind of for feedback. When will it be done? I think the thought process here being now we want to take it to the Plan Commission, get the Plan Commission thoughts on access, use, traffic, etc., before we really finalize that, because I think we've reached that critical junction of needing that feedback, because it will impact the site plan, it will impact the TIA, the traffic impact analysis. So I don't know when it will be done, most likely after that initial plan commission review, if the plan commission kind of agrees with what they're showing. If the plan commission doesn't agree with what's being shown, they'll have to go back and make changes to it. So I know we continue to look at it, but it's a work in progress until we kind of get through that first plan commission meeting.
Will that be on the next plan commission agenda?
Correct. It'll be on the August. Sorry, I'm clicking too many buttons. It will be on the August 3rd, I believe, Plan Commission agenda. That would be an initial review before the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Sayer? Seeing no further questions, we will move on to item 8, which is the engineer's report. Ms. Fisher.
So for the well 6 pumping station construction, testing and pumping of the well and electrical controls began on June 29th. MG&E has been delayed on the natural gas installation, which has slowed progress of HVAC testing. Asphalt paving, finished carpentry, and well startup is anticipated for mid to late July. For the Verona Area High School construction traffic improvements, the majority of the work items have been completed. Work will continue on finishing, punch list, and some rework items throughout the project areas. The West Verona Avenue signals at West End Circle and 9 Mound Road are planned to be operational as of last Friday. Traffic will continue on the inside lane of West Verona Avenue until punch list items are complete. Other project roads will be opening in the coming weeks with some possible lane restrictions to complete punch list and finishing items. For the County Highway PD construction, Woods Road to County Highway M, traffic is currently split that is placed on their appropriate side, and median lane closures are in place. During the week of July 13th, which is this week, the site electric, the concrete curb and gutter and sidewalk, the bike path, and the landscaping are all scheduled to be completed. During the week of July 20th, which is next week, the asphalt milling, surface paving, permanent paint, and permanent signs are scheduled to be completed for the median lanes. Then traffic will be switched to utilize the median lanes so that work can be completed in the outside lanes. For Liberty Park Phase 4 construction, the curb and sidewalk has been poured as of the end of the day of July 8th, which was last week. There are some minor portions of the sidewalk that may be delayed a few days due to last-minute modifications. Paving is projected to be complete by the end of July. For the 2020 asphalt rehabilitation project, that was Northern Lights Road paving between Staff Park A and Staff Park B, is now complete. Contract closeout is all that remains. The 2020 chip seal project is complete. And for Kettle Creek North Phase 3, the letter of credit reduction recommendation has been provided to the city. There's a private storm sewer pipe that needs to be installed before lots 5 and 6 in Phase 3 can be released for building permits. For the Woods at Cathedral Point Phase 1, mass grading and detention basin construction has started. A pre-construction conference for the underground public utilities is scheduled for tomorrow. And for the 2 major design projects going on in the city right now, for the East Side Interceptor design, 90% construction plans have been reviewed by city staff. Easement acquisition has commenced with property owners, with offers being sent out the last week of June. Permit applications have been submitted to the DNR, and we are awaiting the permit from the DNR. Coordination with Dane County and Ice Age Trail have occurred, and accommodations and improvements are being included with the project. And finally, for the Lincoln Street Stormwater Facility design, final design is progressing on the pond design and modeling, pond embankment design and permitting, and corresponding hydraulic and water quality modeling. So with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions on the engineer's report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9, which is committee reports. First up under 9A, we have the Finance Committee. Alder Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to make a motion for the payment of the bills in the amount of $1,487,011.31.
Motion by Alder Kemp. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Cronin. Alder Kemp.
Yes, for the sake of discussion, Mr. Mayor, there's a number of payments here. First, we had an assessor's payment, which is a part of the reassessment for $40,616. We had our EMS payment, which was the second half of the operating budget. That's $307,484. We have the chip seal roads contracts for $216,422. And then also we have the SCADA upgrades for the rehab well for $140,670. And then finally, the MMSD payment, in the amount of $78,007. I should note this is also a payment for the prior set of bills that we approved in the last meeting from June 22nd. So it's a combination of both.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount specified, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from finance?
Nope, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to 9B, which is Plan Commission. Alder Cole.
Thank you. First up is 9B1, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number R-20-028, approving a precise implementation plan amendment to allow 3 live-work units located at 142 Paola Street. The proposed PIP amendment would change approximately 3,005 square feet of commercial space to 3 live-work units at 142 Paola Street. The Plan Commission held the required public hearing on July 6, 2020, and discussed the project. Comments from the Plan Commission included discussion about approving live-work units and the units being solely residential units. Surprised to learn that the commercial portion of the property has remained vacant since opening in 2018. Agreement that the location is good for potential commercial uses with trail access. Glad to learn there is potential for commercial on the lower level of the property, and thought 3 live-work units are a good experiment for the city. The Plan Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the PIP amendment.
Thank you for that explanation. Was an intention to move approve?
Sorry, making a motion to approve resolution number R-0. Yeah.
Okay. Motion by Alder Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Posey. This time, I think. Motion before the body. Oh, Mr. Sayre.
One thing I forgot to put in that report was there were 2 recommended conditions regarding the hours of operation for those businesses from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then second, restricting the uses in those areas to neighborhood commercial. So that was in the resolution, but I forgot to put that in the summary, so I apologize for that.
And that was the intention with the motion to include the conditions?
Yes, it is.
And that was the understanding of the second as well?
Yes.
Okay. So motion with the 2 conditions specified by Mr. Sayre before the body. Questions, comments on this motion? Alder Posey, then Alder Cole.
I just wanted to say that when I saw this proposal, I thought it was a fantastic use for this property. I know I've seen it sit vacant since it was finished, and thought this was a really great idea, and especially the current climate, but I think in general it really is a great thing to introduce to our community, and it'll be really interesting to see that if these fill and how they do.
Alder Cole.
I was going to say along the same lines as Alder Posey, but a couple things we had discussed at Plan Commission was it could be used for like an artist like gallery where, the artist then has their own separate space and they have their own entrance. So, or like somebody has a small business and you aren't coming through like somebody's kitchen or bedroom into their workspace, they'll have a separate entrance. So I think it is a really creative way to use this space and for the, developer and management company to still be able to, make use of the space and get some money out of it without it just sitting vacant all the time. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm excited to see what happens.
Motion before the body. Are there questions or comments? I'll just add, I agree with both what Alder Posey and Alder Cole said. I think, the kind of small scale rentable home office areas are really present an opportunity for people to get started small. And I also think, it's going to have a lesser impact on the neighborhood too, which I think is a nice, kind of side effect. But seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of resolution number R-20-028, approving a precise implementation plan amendment to allow 3 live-work units located at 142 Paoli Street with the conditions noted by Mr. Sayer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Cole.
Sorry. I have a dog situation, sorry. Okay, next is 9B2, and this is just a discussion regarding a concept plan review of a planned unit development for a proposed 4-story 79-unit apartment building with 9,319 square feet of commercial space located at 410 and 420 West Verona Avenue. The applicant is proposing a planned unit development concept plan that would allow for the construction of a 4-story 79-unit apartment building with 9,319 square feet of commercial located at 410 and 420 West Verona. The building would contain affordable and market rate units with 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. The Plan Commission discussed the project on July 6, 2020. Comments from the Plan Commission included support for the workforce affordable units, support for 3-bedroom units, questions regarding the design and location for the commercial units along Rita Avenue instead of along West Verona Avenue, concerns for parking the site with residents and commercial users, concerns that there may be too much commercial in the city, and support for pedestrian and bicycle accessibility. The council is encouraged to provide feedback and recommendations to the applicant on the concept. No formal motion is required, as this is just the conceptual review of the project.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm going to call on myself first real quick. I got a question for Mr. Sayer and then one for the applicant, if the applicant is here, which I think they are. Mr. Sayer, I got a question from a constituent who's concerned about potential overflow parking from this site spilling into the residential neighborhoods. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that, the amount of parking spots that are currently planned for the site.
Sure. Bear with me for 1 second here. So on the screen before you is the site plan for it. We've got the commercial area that kind of abuts Rita and West Verona Avenue. And then as you transition to the east, you have the kind of more of the residential type component to it. And it is a 4-story project. So you would have some residential units that would be above that commercial space as well. Parking itself is, if there's 12 stalls kind of in this back area here. This would obviously be for the commercial, especially the bank use and their employees. You'd have 15 parking spaces kind of in between this kind of drive aisle that goes in between, and then 26 surface stall spaces here as well too. As of right now, they have 80 underground parking spaces. So they have a total of 53 on the surface, 80 underground, and that gives them a total of 133 parking spaces. We haven't done a complete kind of hard analysis on the parking. I think we typically don't do that at this stage just because of we want to see where the project's going before we really dive into it. I think that's something we're going to be taking a look at. That was obviously also discussed by the Plan Commission as well, just making sure the site has sufficient parking. I think initially they're probably in the ballpark. We try to balance these as best we can to not overpark the property, but also not underpark, with the concern obviously of that parking spilling into the neighborhood. So I don't have a strong answer for that person yet, but I mean, it's an item that is always high on our list, especially when you have a site like this that is immediately adjacent to a residential area. So that's something that we'll definitely keep a very close eye on. The project does have some, I forget how many exactly, but it's got all the units in the first floor here are 3-bedroom units. So that's obviously they've got a lot of higher parking demand than typically a studio or 1-bedroom. So we'll have to keep that in mind as well as we take a look at this. But we'll review it and as it goes forward and keep tabs on it.
Great. And then my second question was a question for the applicant. This came up at Plan Commission, but I think it's useful to talk about at the council too, which is the item we just discussed where a commercial retail area stayed basically unoccupied for 2 years, how will this project be different? Because there's, some commercial plan for the first floor. How is this project different, and how will you fill that so we don't end up with an empty space?
Sorry, Mayor. Can you repeat the beginning of that question? I was getting promoted.
Sure.
Hello, everyone.
Well, we just talked about the issue that the Velocity development on Paoli had, and how they basically had a retail area or commercial area open for 2 years. And so how will, the situation be different for your development, and how will it be full and not just, end up with another empty bit of retail on the first floor?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we have going for us is the fact that Anchor Bank, I guess Old National Bank now, is committed to stay on the site with a 20-year lease with options to take them out 35 to 40 years, I believe, if I can remember correctly. And so we'll have a hard tenant there on the corner, nationally accredited tenant into the building. And the way that the tax credit program works is the investors in the tax credits, as well as the lenders, are only going to give us credit for the tenant that's in place. So the fact that we have a lease signed with Old National will allow us to count that income towards the pro forma of the project. The other retail space, they'll discount to zero. And so that is a benefit to our project because we need to make this project work financially based on the housing itself. And it will allow us to, rent that retail space at a more affordable level, hopefully to, local businesses, things along those lines. Where, if there's were a market rate project, you might see, the developer putting 75% of that retail space in at, $30 a square foot in order to get the loans to make the project to work. Whereas, we will have that discount and have the opportunity to, lease it to the right tenant. That's a good fit for the neighborhood. I had heard the concerns over the parking. I think we're at about 1.7 stalls per unit, and we have a good amount of one bedrooms as well as a handful of 2s and 3s. But Old National Bank will be a day user, and at multifamily sites, there's a lot of opportunities for folks to park in the parking lot, in the garage, especially the employees can park in the garage during the day if they're a day user, and then the tenants would park there at night. So we'll continue to work with the city on the level of parking. We'd like to see a few more spots there as well. That might make the commercial a little bit more, viable, a little bit more attractive. But I think that we have a really good chance to fill our commercial space, given that we have that, that hard corner tenant in place.
Thanks. I guess as long as we have the applicant up, any questions for the applicant from the council? Alder Cronin.
It's more of a comment. I have also been contacted by constituents who are concerned about the parking. And if my calculations are correct from what you submitted to the council, 39 of those units will be either 2 or 3 bedrooms. So I really do want to make sure that we get the parking right, because overflow parking into the neighborhoods behind the development are not going to be welcomed. The other question that I have is for the 2 and 3 bedroom units, especially the market rate or the affordable housing units, would they have priority to be assigned more parking? And if so, does that affect the cost of their rental?
So the parking will not be included in the rent, and they'll have a choice whether or not they want to park, on the surface lots, which typically is a free parking spot, or if they would like to pay for a parking spot below the building. There will be a 1-to-1 ratio of parking below the building, and so I think tenants will have the option. If we, run into an issue where, no one is choosing to park their car underneath the building, we'd have to relook at that, but there is usually a nominal amount if someone wants to park a car in the secured underground parking, where people would have a choice to do that or park on the surface lot. Again, I think we have about 53 spaces of parking, surface parking available for tenants. So, we believe in our experience, and we've developed a handful of these projects around the state, that that's sufficient parking. But again, we're hoping to squeeze out a few more parking spaces as well.
Any other questions for the applicant? Alder Posey.
So what was, and I heard that this might have been discussed at Plan Commission as well, but the reason that the commercial is placed on Rita versus being frontage on West Verona is, I'm just curious what the purpose was for that layout.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. The first reason is that WIDA requires that 16% of all the units be 3-bedroom units located on the first floor with private entrances. It's a feature that they have decided is a benefit to larger family units to have that first floor access, so they can not only have access to their unit from right outside, but also the interior hallway. So that's one thing. But really the main driver and the reason why we ended up with this configuration is because we have the bank as our main tenant. The bank has the 2 drive-through lanes. And so we had a couple of choices of how do we get that drive-through in for the bank so we can get them on board to do the redevelopment. And it took us to a design that brought that drive-through right underneath the building, which would have been my first choice. But apparently our architect has done this a handful of times and it's worked really, really well. It's this, that setup also allowed us to not have the driveway basically go around the the tenant portion of the building. So you're not having someone constantly going through the teller lines, making deposits, and then driving through tenants who are getting in and out of the cars as they go to and from their apartments.
Thank you. I do have another question as well. So what are you thinking? Let me give you a little thought of mine first before I ask the question. I realize. So a concern I have right now is we're starting to build up for West Verona Avenue, where it's development with high-rise being 4-story apartment buildings, and again and again and again. And I'm really concerned about having it feel like you're just driving through a corridor, essentially a driveway of apartment buildings, when you're driving through one of our main roads here in town. That's not kind of the feeling of what I think we've all grown to know and love about Verona. So I think design-wise, and especially with things like setbacks from the road, I think maybe that could be accomplished. And I'd love to hear what you are thinking as far as that goes.
Well, we're open to feedback and ideas. Definitely, we're in the concept planning stages. One of the things that we've already incorporated in our development are step backs on all 3 sides of the building. So if you look at the east side of Verona Ave, there's a step back there. There's a step back at the corner of Rita and Verona Avenue, and there's another step back on the north side at Rita to help make that 4-story look a little bit smaller as a height, make it smaller in terms of height goes. But we're open to other feedback and trying to make that make that work in the neighborhood. I understand the comment, definitely, and the concern.
Thank you, because that's my biggest, having seen this and I'm interested to see what else you come up with, because there's definitely a need. There's a need for the level of housing you're proposing. So I don't want to be somebody who's sitting here saying, no, I don't like it. But I'm excited to see what you do to sort of massage it into the neighborhood so it really fits and helps it to feel like the home that we all know and love.
Definitely. We're trying to balance that, the location of the building where it's up closer to the street versus, up closer to the homes that align to the north. And so we're going to be working, with you and Mr. Kemp to make sure that we get that right and it works with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Alder Cole.
I'm just wondering, Sean, I know we discussed this at the Plan Commission meeting, if you could talk a little bit about the potential for, like a restaurant or something, because I know one of the concerns was we have so much commercial. I know you had discussed, possibly still keeping like a restaurant in that space, because that is something that people had really wanted.
Yeah, we've heard that from a handful of folks that they'd like to see, some sort of use there include, the current liquor license that's in place. We've continued our conversations with the owners of Classics. I know Doc is retiring. That's one of the reasons why we started, looking at this site to begin with. But we will approach them to see if they'd like to stay. The middle portion of that commercial space is actually a pretty large space. It's about 4,000 square feet. It'd be perfect for a food, bar type operator. I think we have to balance that with the parking situation. And so, I really want to figure out if we can get a few more stalls somewhere on the, the site itself. We'll work with our, engineer and stormwater issues that we might have. But I'd like to get some more stalls so we can open that option up to, keep a food option on the site.
Other questions for the applicant? I have one more. You mentioned some example sites. Could you list one or two, or email Adam and you could forward to the council later?
Examples of?
Like other projects that you've done, like that are similar. Like this was more in regards to the parking and some of the other stuff. Just some example projects that might be similar that you could point.
Oh yeah, with parking ratios.
Yeah.
Sure, definitely. Yep, we can do that.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing no other hands, thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Hey, Sean.
We are still on the general discussion. So thoughts, questions for staff? Alder Kemp, then Alder Journey, then Alder Cronin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the general concept of this proposal. I have to agree with Alder Posey in that, I am starting to get a little concerned about what we're seeing down West Verona Avenue. With that being said, it's kind of like balancing Old Verona versus, getting some density in the downtown. That corridor is going to have some good commercial space eventually, running all the way through up to the high school. So I've said this to a couple people before. My idea of the new downtown might just move a little bit away from where it is now. And hopefully we can make that as walkable and as bikeable as possible for our citizens. I think that would be really good. So if they can do a good job of, using the setbacks to make it not feel like it's just, again, a corridor of apartment buildings, I think that's good. I also have to echo, I would like to try and keep a restaurant in that space. I know that we don't control that. Losing the classic, that building has been there, as long as I can remember. But more importantly, I think if you ever go in there on a Friday, you see a lot of the same people congregating. It's a place where a lot of the locals like to hang out, and it's good food. So it'd be great if we could get something similar to that. However, we don't control that. I wouldn't be as opposed to, another national chain, to be very honest. That's what happened on the other end of East Verona Avenue. I'd like to try and stay away from that if we could. But otherwise, I think it's a good proposal. I think it fulfills a need that we have, and I look forward to seeing what the developer is going to do with it.
Alder Journey, then Alder Cronin.
So I agree with all of the comments that have been made. I think it's a good proposal, but the same concern is we don't want a Wall Street of large apartment buildings going down the street. And then also that consideration is made so that the neighborhood behind it is not burdened with parking issues. And then also I think it's a very positive that Anchor Bank is going in there for the period of time they've contracted with. Thank you.
Alder Cronin.
So I actually have a question, and I don't know, Adam or Katie, if you could speak to this. What are the requirements if there was a restaurant that went in there that had a liquor license? I'm assuming that factors into how much parking they need. Is that correct? Or are required to have?
Mr. Sayre?
It wouldn't be a liquor license trigger, it'd be the use itself. So if a restaurant went in there, whether it has that liquor license or not, we would treat that the same. It'd still be what's called an indoor commercial entertainment land use. And that's based upon, the parking would be based upon the number of seats for that space. That's the one challenge with some of these buildings, you know, any building, any project we put up is we try to balance not over parking it, but also not under parking it. And you never really know what the tenants are going to be because they're always constantly changing. But there would be different parking requirements depending on the specific use.
Okay. A follow-up question would be, in the age of COVID, where we have seen certain establishments be able to use their parking to provide outdoor seating and other businesses that don't have that option, what would be the situation for this development, because there's so much shared parking for all of the establishments? Would that just be off the table?
I don't think it'd be off the table. It'd be very difficult. I mean, that's the one thing we'll see from COVID. The second thing that we've already seen on our development side is you're going to hear a lot more about drive-throughs, pick-up windows, and any way you can get stuff to people without having them physically go into the building. But it'd be difficult because you have the kind of drive-through area for the tellers. It'd be difficult to probably shut that down and to use that, and you have so much common overlapping space. It would be more challenging than others. I agree.
Other questions or comments on the project? Alder Journey.
So Alder Cronin raised an interesting issue, and not that this comment would influence this project, but it will be interesting to see going forward if architects and businesses now try to provide more outside space and pickup space for their businesses.
I mean, I'll just add for myself, I'm not the biggest drive-through fan, but I mean, considering the fact that my understanding is that there's never been a successful vaccine developed in under 4 years. We could be living with COVID for a long time. And so, you know, it is good to think, you know, we wouldn't want to just lock ourselves into a certain kind of development just because of the current moment. On the other hand, this could potentially extend on for years. So I think it's something we need to all keep in mind. Last chance for questions or comments on this project, which is, of course, this item is feedback only. Mr. Sayer, was there any additional questions city staff had?
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other hands, we will move on to 9B3. Alder Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a discussion regarding a concept plan review of a planned unit development for proposed 161,050 square foot wholesale building and 24 fuel pumps located at the southwest corner of County Highway M and Thousand Oaks Trail. The applicant is proposing a PUD concept plan that would allow for the construction of approximately 161,050 square foot Costco building and fuel facility with a maximum of 24 pumping locations in the southwest corner of County Highway M and Thousand Oaks Trail in the Verona Technology Park. Due to the size of the building, this building is reviewed following the PUD planning process, which includes a concept plan, a general development plan, and a precise implementation plan. The Plan Commission discussed the project on July 6, 2020. Comments from the Plan Commission included support for a Costco as a destination for the city that has the ability to support neighboring communities, concerns regarding the amount of impervious surface for the entire site, support for solar panels in the future, discussions regarding transit options, parking and potential conflicts for the Wisconsin Brewery and Costco, pedestrian connectivity, and would a vacant store agreement work for a fueling station. The council is encouraged to provide feedback and recommendations to the applicant on the concept. No formal motion is required, as this is just the conceptual review of the project.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this item? Alder Ryan.
I've got a ton of feedback about this particular project. I think the overwhelming sentiment is in favor of the Costco. And so there's that. I think some of the concerns I have. I very much would advocate for the idea of having solar panels put in during the build. It sounded like Alder Cully, you said in the future. So it sounds like that would be something that they would be looking at down the track.
Right. This was a question that I had asked that they hadn't initially planned on it just because of the pricing and costs and stuff like that, but that the roof was built so it could withstand, future load. Whereas, if you built it in the wrong way, you couldn't put solar panels on even if you change your mind. So, but I 100% share your comment that, I understand there's a calculation to it, but wow, it would be real nice if they could use that right now.
Yep. The other feedback that I had was, another personal thing and feedback is I think I question the value of the gas pumps. There's already a Quick Trip across the street. This thing's not going to be built for a couple of years. We're supposed to be getting off fossil fuel. Climate change is real. We have extremely limited time to deal with that. I'd rather not see the pumps personally, but and then the other feedback was just around traffic, getting in and out of there, and would there be amendments to the roads coming in and out to alleviate that? I assume there would be. And then concern about, there was a particular concern about the tree, which I gather is going to be spared, the 300-year-old oak tree, which is planned to be spared. So
They are going to be doing a traffic analysis around that. I believe Mr. Sayre had mentioned that because there could potentially be a lot more traffic, especially with the the restaurants across the street and everything. So I know they are going to be doing that, right, Mr. Sayre?
Yeah, Mr. Sayre, you elaborate, I guess.
Yeah, they've done some traffic counts already. I know we got the comment from someone about, well, traffic should be lower because of COVID. So we have actually added a factor into that analysis. So we did our counts and actually then bumped the number up slightly because of COVID as well, just to readjust with people not driving as much. So that's currently underway, and we're going to be working through it and identifying what improvements are necessary.
Alder Cronin.
So I too have had a lot of positive feedback from constituents who are excited about the prospect of a Costco coming. I'm especially pleased in that they do provide family supporting jobs with benefits, which is good. But the concerns that I have are definitely echoed with what was discussed at the Plan Commission, which is it's a lot of impervious surface for parking. And if there is any way we can get some of that underground and reduce the size of that parking. The other concern that I do have is that connectivity between the hotel across the way and the restaurants. Right now, the only way, as it's proposed, to go back and forth would be if you have a car. I mean, I really can't see anybody on a bicycle feeling comfortable crossing the road there, even with the traffic lights that have been installed. And lastly, I will also echo I don't know that we need 24 gas pumps with Quick Trip right across the street as well. So those are my concerns for the project, but for the most part, I'm very pleased that this could be an opportunity for Verona.
Alder Ricky.
Thanks. I echo the environmentally conscious comments that were already made and would encourage installation of solar panels upon building, as well as consideration for underground parking. I don't know if that's a possibility to decrease the impervious surface. And then I wonder if rain gardens can be considered in addition to, or instead of ponds. For water infiltration, and just to think outside of the box for any other environmentally friendly building considerations that would be in keeping with our city's environmental resolution.
Alder Touche.
Thank you. Yeah, like a lot of you, I've heard a lot of positive feedback. Some people discouraging it, just worrying about the impact on other businesses in Verona. On the impervious surface part, I mean, I actually work close to the Costco in Middleton, and yeah, there's a lot of pavement there. I know the cost of underground parking is very expensive. I know there are alternate technologies for paving that allow the surface to take in groundwater and all that other stuff. So I think I would like to hear more creative solutions from the Costco group. The gas pumps, honestly, 24 pumps don't bother me. I sit in line at Costco fairly often to get my gas. My concerns about Quick Trip aren't as big as others, just because on a personal level, Quick Trip is almost 30 cents more a gallon than Costco, and it makes me wonder how come it's so much more expensive, which is part of why I go to Costco for my gas, and I'm sure I've heard the same from others. So having some competition there may be a good thing. Other than that, I'm excited to hear they're coming. Thank you.
Additional feedback from the council. Alder Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I again, I haven't had one bad comment or concern yet about Costco. I think it would be a good addition, chiefly because of how they treat their employees. Alder Cronin already said that. That's a huge thing. There's going to be a lot of really, solid jobs, and it's a company that treats their employees with dignity and respect. The healthcare that they offer is great. So I really like that we're getting a business here that will be able to employ quite a few people here. Hopefully a lot of them will be people that live in the city. And there'll be jobs that are, offer basic human dignity and a good solid living wage. So when I saw that, obviously, like a lot of us, we shop there, my family's in there. The only negative thing I might have to say is dealing with all of the samples when you're trying to get around there. But other than that, I have no issues, and I think it's a good company. It would be a good fit in Verona.
I guess if I could, I'll just reiterate kind of some of the stuff I said at the Plan Commission. But yeah, like other people have said, the jobs thing, the fact that it can be family supporting and a commitment to hire at least some people from the area, I think is really good. I think that we want to work on bike and ped connections for people who want to walk or bike, in the area. And I understand the comments about, potentially some of the big roads are going to kind of cut off people from walking and biking. But there's other spots where people work and they might want to walk to Costco. So I think we should try to encourage that as much as possible. In line with kind of what Alder Rieke said about rain gardens, I would love to see, and I know this is super early in the process, as far as it goes, but I would love to see some very heavy landscaping. I think some trees can help, break up some of the parking, and they can also help, handle stormwater. And I think in general, people tend to like to be around trees, as simplistic as that sounds. And then, yeah, I could take or leave the gas pumps. I would hope that it would be built to stringent safety standards. As we all know here, we're dealing with potentially 2 contaminated sites on West Verona Avenue because of gas that was improperly stored. And that's why the old truck stop hasn't been developed yet. And I know, this is nothing against Costco's. They're not saying anything that they've done. It's just, you deal with that a couple of times and you see the kind of amount of money that it'll take to fix it, and it makes you paranoid and suspicious. So. But in general, yeah, I think I've heard a ton of positive feedback. There are a lot of Verona residents who have Costco memberships, and I think a lot of people would find it a tremendous convenience as well. And I think there's a lot of work the city's going to have to do going forward if we move forward with this, just on traffic and getting all that stuff to work. But I think it's a positive proposal for the city. Other questions or comments or other kinds of feedback? Mr. Sayre, anything you'd like other people to opine on? All right. Anything further from Plan Commission? Alder Cole.
Well, thank you. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to item 10, new business. We just have one thing, 10A, a discussion and possible action regarding the bar and restaurant COVID-19 support program proposal. Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. On July 1st, 2020, Dane County issued emergency order number 7 that limits gatherings at bars and restaurants. This new order has created some financial challenges for local bars and restaurants. In response to the order, staff has drafted a bar and restaurant COVID-19 support program. The criteria for the program are the same as the previous grant program except for the following. 1, the maximum grant amount is $4,000. 2, must be classified as a bar or restaurant as defined in the Dane County order. And 3, the business or applicant has not previously been awarded a City of Verona COVID-19 grant. The city has approximately 33 bars and restaurants. 8 were previously awarded City of Verona COVID-19 grant funds. And staff is recommending making $100,000 in funds available for this grant program. So the goal here is that some of the bars and restaurants, obviously with the caps in place, they're struggling. And I know I've had some conversation with Mayor Diaz and Alderperson Kemp, just trying to put possibly some options out there for some of these places that are significantly hampered by these caps. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alder Cronin.
Is there any way we can prioritize awarding funds to businesses that have either very little or no ability to have outdoor seating?
I think it'd be tough. I mean, I say that to the extent of, I mean, some of these places have parking lots. There's a handful, and the one that comes to mind, obviously, with very limited is you have Toot and Kate's. Obviously, that's a big one. I'm just trying to think as I'm rambling here. Salazar already had a grant. Tuvalu had a grant in the last go around. Hop House has outdoor seating, but they had a grant. About the only one that'd be very limited would be Toot and Kate's. Now they still do have outdoor seating. It's just not enough to kind of replace what's lost. Yeah, it'd be tough to really quantify that. I mean, you'd have to almost say, I don't know. I'd have to give some thought.
Alder Kemp.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about it. I don't know if it's going to be an issue as much as we may think, because a number of businesses have already received a grant, so that kind of peels them off the list if I'm not mistaken. And then any remaining, I think there's a reasonable pool of money, and given the range that we would be granting, just about anyone that wanted to get one that qualified should have access to an amount that's reasonable for them, I think. But I could be wrong.
Mr. Sayre, any because you looked at the numbers a little more closely.
Yeah, we did. I mean, like I said, we had 8 from last time. Off the top of my head, I can think of 2 that I'm pretty sure are probably going to apply for it. We had one restaurant last time that said they qualified for it, but they were concerned about taking money from other people in more need because they were doing takeout at that point. So I know they passed on it, so that could be possible. A third one. The criteria says if they're a franchise, they don't have any local franchise support. So there's that criteria still in place as well. I mean, I think it is going to be a limited number, but I don't know. I don't know how. I haven't talked to all these businesses personally, so I don't know exactly where they're at. I don't know if that helps or not, but the thought process being here is we have about 33 businesses, 8 of which applied already. That gets us to 25. 25 times 4 is $100,000. I don't think we're going to hit that, but I could be wrong too. But that's how we got to $100,000.
Alder Posey.
Thanks. I'm really happy to see these funds come back up again. I know that when we did the first round of things, we knew that this would still be there and available. So I'm glad that we're taking the step to move forward with this. I'm really good with what we've discussed so far. I think the only question I have is looking at other potential industries that we haven't touched on yet. I know the opportunity has been there for them, but I think about youth serving. organizations that aren't able to run programs this summer necessarily because they couldn't get figured out, couldn't get staff, whatever it might be. And that's another area and industry that our community really does need, especially during summer. And if they aren't here next summer, when everybody's hopefully back up and running, it could be an issue. So it's something that I really just hope that we can look at. And if anybody else has heard, I know I haven't been, but it's a question I've had in my mind is, are we just not hearing from them, whether it's childcare or summer programs for youth? Thank you. Or after school too. I would throw that in there because as we get to fall, those are also programs that families need and dual income families need. And if we don't have them, it's going to be an issue.
Other questions or comments? Did we lose Alder Riki, by the way?
Her Wi-Fi dropped out.
Okay. I guess, and back. All right. Any other questions, comments, or motions on this item? Mr. Sayre.
So if this is approved, the intent would be we'd have a pretty short, quick turnaround on applications, and the goal would be to take these back to the council 2 weeks from today for approval like we did with the last round. That'd be the goal. So I think the deadline is next Monday or Tuesday, and then we do a quick review and then get them back to the council and hopefully get the checks out quick.
Questions, comments, motions? Alder Posey.
First, question real quick. What would the process be for putting this information out? Because I know sometimes I've heard about people not hearing things, and so that would be great to know that.
Yeah, the last one we pushed out pretty heavily through the chamber. I know we don't hit all the members there, but that's where we pushed it out. I believe we also posted it on our Facebook page as well. The chamber has 20-some members who are restaurants or bars, so we don't hit them all, but we hit a good chunk of them. I can reach the Verona Press as well and see if they can run something in there too.
Alder Ryan.
Sorry, could I just confirm the details? So it's up to 4,000, and the timeline would be 2 weeks from today, the deadline, is that right, to apply?
No, the deadline to apply would be July 20th at 4 p.m. We'd have our internal review of staff of just making sure they meet the qualifications. And then it would go to council on the 27th for final approval.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions, comments, motions? Alder Posey, then Alder Cole.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to move ahead with or approve the bar and restaurant COVID-19 support program with the timeline that we have discussed and timeline we have discussed and the guidelines we have laid out here.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Cole, I think. Anything to add, Alder Posey?
Not at the time.
Okay. I'll just throw in my quick 2 cents. Yeah, I think we're trying, as a city, trying to do what we can to help our businesses. We understand a lot of this stuff is out of our control, out of the restaurant and bars control, and I think, like I said earlier in the meeting, I think some of this stuff is going to be ongoing, and people are going to have to deal with an economic downturn and deal with potentially people being a little squeamish about being in enclosed indoor spaces with other people. And so I hope all the restaurants, use the opportunity that hopefully we're giving them, that they, kind of get them through the next month or two, but then they, or help them out. And so then they can get to however they're going to deal with whatever comes next, or if this becomes an ongoing thing, I'm sure everyone's already thought of all this stuff: carry out, social distancing, outdoor dining, alternative revenue streams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just, like I said, I hope this helps, and I hope people are prepared for it to last for a while. That being said, motion before the body. Questions, comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the bar and restaurant COVID-19 support program with the guidelines and timeline noted, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We're on item 11, adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Alder Coles, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Cronin, I think. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. And we are adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.